Am I recording? Yeah, yes. Okay. Hey, welcome to Melodic Compositions with Gus Johnson, aka the Bearded Glory, aka the Maestro Among Men. Welcome to my super cool basement studio. My wife is currently upstairs watching Great British Baking Show, so if you hear some of that, that's what you're listening to. All right. So why talk about melodic compositions? It's one of those things that melody is considered in Western music to be, one of the most important parts of a composition, but it doesn't get talked about in terms of like how to engineer or how to construct a good melody. You know what the components are. You're kind of just given like 8 measures and say compose a melody in C major. So if you were like me and you didn't have a melodic instrument, like I played the bass clarinet, I was really familiar with writing backgrounds, but I was not so familiar with writing melodies. So, some overarching ideas that we'll be talking about with each of these episodes that I'll be doing is a balance between familiar ideas and new ideas, a balance between patterns, which is repetition, and changes, which is contrast. We'll be talking about some structure, which is how you, like the actual number of measures or how you repeat sections or phrases. So, for example, the formal structure, which is like the blues form, the verse, chorus, bridge, double chorus, sonata form, sentences, theme, variations, fugues, etc., things like that. And then the tools we'll be using. So, these are basically the episodes we'll be doing. We'll be covering pitch, tonality, rhythm, meter, grouping, which is how you actually group your rhythms together or how you group your cells together, stuff like that. Structure, orchestration, texture, timbre, embellishments, and expression, stuff like that. So that's where we're headed. Since this is the first one, we're going to talk about pitch. When you are composing with when you think about pitch as a composer, there's a few things you can think about, and I'll be getting to my Sibelius here in just a minute, so just setting this up. You need to think about your range. These are the things that you can kind of add to your tool belt. You've got range as a tool. You can have ascending or descending lines or non-moving pitch patterns. A common example of that is pop music nowadays. If you listen to the melodies, a lot of them are on stagnant notes. For example, the All-Star meme, they just stop coming and they don't stop coming and they don't stop coming and they don't stop coming, da 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 da, by Smash Mouth. That's a really common reference to that. Motifs and what they call cells, which is just a small grouping of pitches, scales, arpeggios, and stuff like that, which is related to tonality. Interval and scale degree relationships, those are just some tools that you have available in your tool belt. So let's go ahead and minimize this guy and let's get to it. Just keep those things in mind. In fact, I'm going to even pull it up on my other screen so that I can keep it in my mind. All right, so here we go. I'm going to start with a super familiar melody to everybody. And if you don't know what it is, it's Mary Had a Little Lamb. And I'm just going to do the first chunk of it, which I would consider the A phrase, the A part of it. Okay, so it sounds like this. Oh, that's really slow. Let me... Panels, transport... Speed it up. All right. So we're now going faster, which means we don't have to waste as much time. Okay, so as a composer, let's just say I start with this A phrase here, and I'll go ahead and put a double measure line here so that we remember what we started with, and I will label it using Control T, original. So if I highlight and use the letter R, I'm just going to label these so that we can keep track of what we're doing. Range change. All right, so as a composer, I've got options here. We don't want to get, remember, we want to keep a balance between new ideas and old ideas. So right away, if I make one change, I'm just going to move it up. Actually, let's copy here so that I've got the original octave, and then I'm going to double it up the octave here as well. So I've just altered my octave is all I've done. Not a big change, but it's an effective change. Oftentimes when you're playing a melody, just a range change like that can be an effective way of repeating without repeating, if that makes sense. You know, repeating while also varying it a little bit there. Okay, so I can also, let's go ahead and add 1, 2, 3, 4. Separate them with a double bar line again. And let's label this guy switch directions. So we talked about ascending versus descending pitch. So if you analyze, we have 3 stepwise descending notes followed by a stepwise ascending note. So I'm just going to literally switch directions. In fact, what I'm going to do, let's copy the notes. Copy and paste. And if you use Alt-Shift-N, or if you go into the note input tab and hit re-input pitches, if you have a MIDI keyboard, then you can re-input your pitches by playing them on the keyboard. Or if you're using a laptop keyboard, all you have to do is just type the new letters in. So I'm going to start on C, and I'm just going to literally invert this as much as I can. And what I mean by that is instead of ascending, I'm going to switch to descending. So now I need to descend another step. Okay. So if I go back to the original idea, down 1, up 1, up 1, down 1, up 2. Okay, so now I just need to mirror that pattern. Okay, so this is all I've done. I've just inverted it. And already I've got a really fresh feeling. In fact, if I combine that against the original one, if I have the original one going on at the same time, I wonder, how would that sound? Okay, so I might need to alter that a little bit, but you see that I've already given myself a similar feeling while not varying too much. Okay, so with a little bit of massaging there, I can make a really workable new melody out of that. And I don't have to, I don't have to use the original against the new idea. I can go ahead and make just a new idea with same background, maybe, or with a similar background, things like that. Okay, so we've talked about, let's actually continue with this ascending versus descending. So right now, I've got a variety of ascending versus descending pitches. If you've ever listened to John Williams' work, he wrote the it's the Indiana Jones theme, but that's not what it's called. Somebody out there is gonna roast me. Anyway, do 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 do. It's an ascending scale the entire time. The only thing it's broken up in terms of like they do octave jumps down so that the range stays manageable. So we're going to write "Mary Had a Little Lamb" as ascending only. So let's go ahead and paste in the notes again. Let me copy, and this is just so that I can get the rhythms easier, and I just re-input the pitches. Okay, so starting with the rhythms here as my starting point, I'm going to start on C, and I'm just going to go ascending, let's see, no, then I need to go back to C. Okay, so you see I threw in a couple of octave jumps there. And I could throw even a couple more in there. Let's actually... That works to me. Actually, you know what? Let's take these guys up in octaves. And so now you're just playing around to find what sounds good to you. Okay, and that actually I like a little bit better. You know, with a nice simple accompaniment, let's just go whole notes. So maybe half notes actually. Whoa. Mm-hmm. Okay, so nothing super crazy. I just stayed in the key signature. Ooh, except I need to end. So maybe actually, maybe I'll raise that. And I need to add, so I just made it, whoops. And never let yourself get caught up in, how can I say this? Don't be so rigid that you lose sight of what sounds good and feels good for the sake of an idea or a concept. And what I'm talking about is something that bothers me about 12-tone music. 12-tone music can be very beautiful, but additionally, if you become a slave to the structure or the concept of the melody over the sound, remember that music is sound and silence, organized sound and silence, and it's meant to evoke something in you. Go ahead and pursue those concepts and you'll find beautiful music in there, but never become a slave to the concept over the, always submit to the music rather than to the concept, if that makes sense. So you see that I officially, I changed my tonality. I went to the A minor rather than C major, and I broke my scale pattern. So I did that. I made that decision as a composer because it sounded correct. It sounded nicer to me. It felt more rewarding. And so you got to make those kinds of choices. Never submit to the structure or the idea over the actual music itself. Remember that the music is something you are actually interacting with as well. Okay, so let's try descending only. All right. So let me take these. Whoops. Go to here, filters, notes and chords. This is just a way of me getting the notes without actually getting all the annoying text and stuff like that. So now I can re-input the pitches again. And let's start here on C. Whoops. Okay, so again, I did a similar idea where I have this jump up, and I think actually we'll take... Oh, wow, this is really evocative. Okay, so I really like measure 18 and measure 20. Measure 19 feels a little bit clunky. So I'm just trying to surround the A, maybe? Okay, I'm not sure that's the right answer either. Maybe it just needs an octave jump. So it's not quite a perfect... Again, I'm not... Yeah, that's so much nicer. Sometimes you'll need to break the rule of the concept in order for the melody to actually function in a way that is pleasing. So there you have it, I suppose. Okay, so descending only, I could add in some chords here as well. I won't bother because on its own, this melody sounds pretty nice. And again, I'm focusing on keeping that balance between familiar ideas and new ideas. I don't want to break away from the familiar too soon. I don't want to stay on the familiar for too long. So basically, I've set up a pattern of descending ideas, and then I change it just enough to make it feel fresh and new. So that's really all there is to that idea. Let's go ahead and take a look at, let's see what else is on my list. We've used motifs and cells. So a cell, let's go ahead. Cell is just defined as a small collection of notes, typically repeated over and over again, which is kind of what a motif is as well. So in the old days, if you were talking to Beethoven, Beethoven would have said, "Oh yeah, that's a motif," whereas John Cage would say, "Oh, that's a cell." So it's just a terminology difference. At least that's how I understand it. So somebody out there who's more I don't know, I guess more professional might define it differently. So you can yell at me if you want to. Anyway, so let's take a look. I'm going to go back to the original version of Mary Had a Little Lamb, and we're going to make some cells or motifs out of these guys. Okay. And actually, you know what? XV. Let me go ahead and rewrite it in eighth notes, just because over 4 bars, that will give me more options to work with. Okay. There we go. All right. So here I have, let's do the same idea twice. Okay. So I've got plenty of options here. I could use these 4 notes as a cell. I could use these 5 notes as a cell. I could use, do I really want to use just unison notes like DDD? Probably not. I could use these 6 notes as a cell. I could use maybe these notes as a cell. That sounds interesting. Let's play around with that. So I've just taken these. Let me go ahead. I think there's a way to put a line under those, a bracket. I just want to be able to mark them. All right, so I've marked these now as, yes, there we go, cool. For those who don't know, in Sibelius, if you click on the end handle and use the spacebar or shift spacebar, it will extend or de-extend your brackets or your slurs, your crescendos, stuff like that. So I've used these notes. Let me go ahead and just copy these guys. Copy, paste. Let me just put them in new bars. All right, so I've got these 4 bars here. Bar line, let's do final just so that I've got a thicker division here. Get rid of this bracket, and let's hear our little cell. Okay, do 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 do. I could put those in a different rhythm. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So let's go triplets here, and let's put them in. Okay. I could put them in, obviously, in and you see, again, I cheated a little bit because 1, 2, 3 G's in a row where I should only have 2, but never allow yourself to become a slave to the idea over a slave to what sounds good, feels good, musically. You know, that would sound staccato. Okay, so you know, right there you've got a beautiful thing, and I could take an idea like this, and I think I will. Let's go ahead and steal this, get rid of these guys, and let's play around with this. So I've created now a pitch cell, D, E, G, G, E, D, that I can play around with. Let's change the octave. And then I could change the directionality of it. Whoops. Down a step. Okay, so I've only changed the, instead of ascending here, I descended there, and then I kept the same ending to bring it down to the original octave. And how do I want to end it? Da, 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 da. And we'll just slow it down. There we go. Add in some slurs just to show some smoothness there. Not that a piano can really do that. Okay, so that sounds very similar, like, Ray's theme for the new Star Wars movie. It's just a cell of like 5 or 6 notes. You don't want to have too much repetition within the cell because otherwise it becomes very like the all-star meme, where it dun 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 dun. It's just all one note over and over and over and over and over again. You want to have some variety within the cell, but not too much variety. Okay, so again. So there you go. You've got your little motif. A really great example of motifs is classical fugues. Bach did a really good job with these things. Handel did some really good work with that sort of stuff as well. The seasons are motific, in my opinion. Let's see. Who composed the Avengers? Was that Silvestri? I think so. But you think that the motif for the Avengers is all over the place, so that's a very motific thing. Lord of the Rings, the soundtrack, not the Hobbit trilogy as much, but the soundtrack for the Lord of the Rings is very leitmotif-ish. So Wagner also was a big proponent of those types of things. The Star Wars films have very clear motifs for their characters and for their concepts as well. So, all right. Go ahead and throw another final bar line in there. What's next on my list to talk about? We've talked about motifs and cells. Let's talk about scales and arpeggios and stuff like that. So let's actually go ahead and rewrite out. Whoops, copy. Okay, small change here. Whoops. Okay, so I've rewritten out my Mary Had a Little Lamb. Let's go ahead and slow down my tempo now since I'm no longer doing quarter notes. So this version of the melody goes along with the C major scale. I've got the major scale carries with it in Western music certain connotations of joy, of happiness, of peace, of just of not sure I can come up with the right word. I won't worry about it. But if I change this to minor, all I gotta do or I could take it to C minor. Let's go ahead and transpose it up by a minor third. By changing the scale, you change the interval relationships between notes. Pitch is the distance vertically between vibrations. So you think about A being 444 vibrations per second, or 444 hertz, or whatever that is, A440. Or at ISU, we used to tune to A444, which is pretty sharp. Anyway, so A440 is 440 vibrations per second. So the next A above that is double, so A880. So between there's all sorts of speeds of vibration, and we just land on specific sets of vibrations, specific numbers of vibrations to get our pitches. So vertically, pitch is just the difference in vibration speed. So that's really all an interval is, and the way we interpret sound as thinking human beings is the way we interpret pitch is based on the relationship of vibrations. So if I took something that might sound nice on piano, might not sound good in if I reorchestrated it on the pitch for pitch on the organ, or if I reorchestrated it pitch for pitch on, say, a vibraphone, because you would run into certain overtone vibrations that are overtone frequencies that are vibrating as well. So getting past the science, what I'm trying to say is that if you change the relationship between the pitches, let's go ahead and shift T, let's go back down by a minor third, and then I can move back up. So if you change the relationship between the pitches, you can change the sound of your melody. So if I took it up by a step, I'm now in the Dorian mode. And you won't notice a difference in this case between the Dorian mode and the minor mode. They're both forms of the minor. But if I took my cell idea here, let's go ahead and move that. Okay, so now I'm in the Dorian mode there. What if I move it up another one? Nah, I don't like that one. That sounds yucky. So you can... Ooh, that's quite nice. So let's go ahead and put it back to where it was. So you can very quickly, just by changing the scale degrees, or whatever, what have you, like maybe one measure is in major, and then the next one's in minor, and then the next one's in major. Whoops. And then the next one's in minor. You can get some interesting juxtapositions, whatever. You should explore altering some of your melody, just trying it out using new scale chunks, or maybe now, let's go ahead and undo all that garbage because it sounds yucky. Maybe now I keep it on the correct scale degrees, but every time I have scale degree number 1, I'm just going to take it up the octave. So octave displacement. And every time I have repeated notes, maybe I'll just displace the second one. So that's pattern based as well, where it's predictable which one is going to be displaced. There's one that should be displaced. Sorry, that's my phone going off. Okay, so not the greatest pattern ever, but it is a way to change, it just makes it feel a little different. Maybe this would feel better if I shuffled it a little bit. Woohoo. Now I'm playing with the rhythms rather than the pitches. That sounds awful. But anyway, so if you play around with the scales, you can get a lot of things. Let's go ahead and build one more melody of our own. Let's make it 8 bars, where we really emphasize the idea of using the scale degrees and the arpeggio. So I'm just going to start with just a whatever rhythm kind of a thing. Okay, so I just made up this rhythm on the spot. You guys saw it. Let's alter it the second time we do it, just for kicks. Really, this is kind of like the application at the end of a lesson, so you guys are getting to... You guys are getting to see my mental process right now, which is probably very impressive. All right, so thinking about pitches. I can do range things, so I'm going to start. Let's use the key of C major, since that's my key signature right now. I'm not going to use any modes, and let's start with an ascending pattern. But I'm not going to ascend stepwise, I'm going to ascend in an arpeggio. Okay, so I've done ascending. I don't want to break my trend too soon, but I also don't want to keep it too repetitive for too long. So I'm going to continue ascending, but from something slightly different. So I've just changed my arpeggio to be the 4th scale degree, so concert F arpeggio. So now I'm descending. Okay, so I've got ascending and then descending. Okay, so very satisfying. Let's go ahead and do ascending again, but let's not start on note number 1 of the scale. Let's start on scale degree 2. Okay, there we go. So I've got ascending, ascending arpeggio, and then somewhat scale-wise stepping down with a little bit of a surrounding right there. So I follow the same idea. Okay, so it's not going to win any Emmys, but I'm off to a good start. Okay, so I think it would be really cool if maybe I changed this to be ya da 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 dum, ya da da dum. Yeah, let's just go ahead and so I've emphasized kind of like a G minor, C minor sort of idea here. That's really weird, but it sounds nice, feels nice. Okay, maybe I even further emphasize. Okay, so it's off to a start anyway. So now I've done 2 bars followed by 2 bars of basically the same idea, even though I've changed up the pitches. It's the same shape, and it's the same kind of motif idea. So now let's see, what can I change? I'm gonna take just these ideas, the arpeggio, the first arpeggio, but I'm gonna change the register here. Okay, and then the last time through, I'm going to really change the shape pretty drastically. Okay, just ending on the tonic there. So I go up in C minor. Pardon part of me wonders if maybe I should do this in F minor instead. So let's go ahead and re-input those pitches to match that. Okay. Respell these guys correctly because Sibelius doesn't understand what that should be. So I've altered my range. It's goes very high. Dum-ba-da-da-dum, ya-ga-da-dum. It reminds me of the start of Billy Boyd's Last Goodbye. If you can't tell, I do like Lord of the Rings music. Anyway, so here we go. We have a arpeggio pattern. Same arpeggio pattern, descending notes. All ascending arpeggio. Descending. Mixture. There we go. So that's all there is to the pitch stuff. Yeah, I say that as if it's simple. Just remember the tools you have in your tool belt. When it comes to composing melodies, remember the pitch tools that you have in your tool belt. You've got range change things. So play a melody, then play it up an octave. Switch the direction of your ascending or descending. Try just ascending notes with octave breaks in there. Try just descending melody with octave breaks in there. Try finding a cell and then working with a cell. That's very common in modern minimalist music now. So there's some working with the cell. You can also try breaking up the cell into different patterns. Think about your scale relationships, the relationships between your notes, so you can shift it all up to a different mode. You can shift it down to a different mode. You can transpose it to a completely different key. You can take part of it and transpose it to a different key. So that's where you can start to explore some of the wilder stuff. But all right, that's all I've got. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Keep composing.